Greetings, this is another Sprocket video and actually, you know what, let me dress up appropriately for this occasion. Much better. Now, what was I saying? Today's subject is a very interesting vehicle and it's actually one of my latest creations and it is the HGS 105-9-1 Cerberus. This is a rather interesting vehicle because it's a mid-war tank, a heavy tank, and yet it has 3 turrets, like, who lives in the past? Well, me, clearly. But still, this is such an outdated concept for a mid-war tank. Like, it has been abandoned a long time ago, and what do I mean by that? The problem with multi-turreted vehicles is that the commander doesn't need to worry about just one turret, he has to worry about 3 turrets, or more in another case of mine. And that, of course, leads to a lot of communication issues, a lot of issues with misplaced attention and such, and overall the effectiveness of the vehicles which have multiple turrets is actually decreased because of this overload on the commander's responsibilities. But having a couple extra hands is nice during maintenance. That's one thing which is actually a huge upside of having multi-turreted tanks. The crew can just work on more stuff at once during maintenance, so yeah. Anyway, let's now talk about the armor profile. So this thing is actually decently well armored. The lower plate is 150mm thick, the upper plate is 60, but it's well angled. The driver has a weak armor plate in front of him, only 80mm thick, and it's not super well angled. And you can see that it's around 120mm of armor, and it's the same for the front of the smaller turrets. It's also around 120mm thick in most areas. The sides of the tank, and I do mean sides because the smaller turrets have 80mm thick sides. The central turret actually has variable thicknesses, like here it's 105mm, it's 120 here, and it's 115 here. Meanwhile, the hull is just 120mm all around on the sides, plus an extra 30mm armor plate protection in the tracks. So yeah, that's kinda nice, I guess. And even the rear is worth something. It's 50mm here, it's 80 here, and it's also 80 here. So overall, the protection of the tank does not lack that much. It's actually working out decently well during the mid-war scenarios. Now let's move on to the firepower, and the 37mm guns are quite underwhelming, but the newer change that allows single man crews to operate guns effectively allows me to use these 37mm guns in very niche scenarios, mainly against lightly armored tanks or the sides of medium armored tanks. Against heavies, well, 53mm of penetration at close range kinda can work out, but not really. But the highlight of this tank, high, so I'm re-recording this part because while editing I actually realized that there was an audio glitch, a very ear-piercing one at that happened during this segment, so yeah, here we go again, I guess. So, and as for the 155mm gun, it's actually rather strong. It has over 200mm of penetration and well, it's quite sluggish shell velocity here, but it's manageable, I would say. And I even modeled it. And if you remember a very specific older tank of mine, this gun might be somewhat familiar to you, because I have used said gun elsewhere, and specifically I'm showing it on the Anvil 2 self-propelled howitzer, or artillery vehicle, or however you want to call it. And yeah, the gun barrel is the same, basically. However, the recoil cylinders are arranged differently, and it's basically a different gun, all things considered, besides the gun barrel, of course. And that's because this is an artillery gun. I always make my artillery guns weaker. It's not supposed to have great penetration, it's not supposed to have great shell velocity. It's overall a really bad gun. However, obviously, if we take a look at the Cerberus's 155mm gun once again, you can notice the much larger recoil cylinders that are also much thicker, and you know, this is a much stronger gun as well. It's basically an anti-tank gun. Well, not exactly an anti-tank gun, it's an anti-everything gun. It's against bunkers, against tanks, against infantry, against airplanes if you can aim well enough. Though quite a bit of luck plays a role in that too. Okay, that was an exaggeration. I can't speak today. That was quite an exaggeration. So yes. Back to the original video. However, there's a slight issue with this, and that's... well, there's not a lot of space left in the turret after this gun was installed. Alright, I have one loader here, and theoretically this guy can be a loader too, but who am I kidding? What's this guy gonna do realistically? So I actually did the one thing I never thought I would do. I decreased the efficiency of the loader to 0.5. So I basically halved the efficiency, and that mirrors the lack of crew comfort in the turret, and that reduces fire rate significantly. Also, one significant reduction is the maneuverability, or I should say the top speed. It has two 420 horsepower engines, however, Sprocket currently only recognizes one as a power source. And I mean, this shouldn't be possible technically, but there are magicians who can edit blueprints better than I can, so yeah, it's not my doing. I just downloaded a blueprint with two engines and built a tank around that. So yes, this 76-ton heavy tank, which almost classifies as a super heavy within a mid-war context, this 76-ton heavy tank is propelled by a single 420 horsepower engine. Well, technically two, but as I said, it's just one in actuality. So what that means is that I could gear it better, that's true, but acceleration is probably more important in this case than top speed, so I settled with only 20 kilometers per hour forwards. And I actually don't remember what the reverse speed was, so let's find out right now. 8 and a third. Not that bad, all things considered. So, as I said, the 37mm guns don't have a very high performance. However, in regards to the 155mm gun, well, I shot the one place on that tank I can't penetrate from this angle, and now I have to wait around 15-ish more seconds. So, as I was saying, in regards to the main gun, it's very destructive. It has around 200-ish millimeters of penetration, which is really damn good. Like, it's really good actually. And, you know, as I said, the gun is too large. As you can see, it doesn't even have a coaxial machine gun. It only has this 13mm up top, which actually blocks the hatch of the commander slightly. So yeah, that's a slight design oversight, but I mean, come on. Let that be the least of our worries in regards to this tank. And you also have a couple of these 8mm light machine guns in the mini turrets. But as I was saying, the gun issue, by that I mean the main gun issue in relation to the space inside the turret, is actually quite big. And as you would imagine, having 120mm sides curved like this, yeah, it's not ideal. So, what I've done was basically get rid of all of these issues. And that's how I ended up with the Cerberus second prototype. And here's a bit of lore. This thing on the screen is the first Cerberus. Then later I learned, well, not so later, I don't know how long after that was, but it was a really short time after that I learned that I can make custom mantlets, and this is the Cerberus that came after that. It actually had corner plates on the hull. That is the version that inspired the Cerberus with the curved hull corners. Then, around 2 years ago now, I actually reworked that version, and the reworked version had a singular plate as an upper frontal plate, and that is the version I reworked into the Cerberus second prototype. So what happened was that I didn't know which version I preferred, the one with the corners or one without, so I made both. And actually I planned on doing a self-propelled anti-tank and self-propelled howitzer variant for each, but I never quite started them yet. I should probably add. Anyway, so this is the Cerberus second prototype, and as you can see, it uses my good old 90mm gun, which I put into basically everything. Well, I'm exaggerating, but it's a gun I use very commonly. Also, what you can notice besides the obvious change in the hull's shape is that the mini turrets have extra armor plates on the mantlet, which reflects the flat mantlets of the second iteration of the Cerberus. Well, technically third, but you get my point. And you can see that I have a coaxial 13mm heavy machine gun, which in this case actually fires. So let's see what it looks like. And actually a couple closing thoughts here, because I actually forgot to say these. The Cerberus is actually one of my most favorite designs I've made so far. Like, actually, this is peak tank design in my opinion. So yes, that's one of the reasons I wanted to rework it. I think that's what I wanted to say. Okay, see you next time, whenever that might be.